Welcome back. You're still tuned in to Salam Media, and we'll be discussing, I think, something that's very, very prevalent right now, and it's one of the top stories making headlines all across the world. We'll be discussing the escalating tensions between Israel and Hezbollah following a significant missile interceptions near Tel Aviv. This marks a notable shift in the conflict with implications for regional stability and security. And to help us unpack these developments, we're joined by Naeem Gina, senior researcher at the Mapungubwe Institute. Naeem, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to Salam Media. Always a pleasure having you join us to have discussions and unpack these very, very important events, particularly in the Middle East.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Welcome, Salam. I think first and foremost, I think you can start by giving us just an overview and your broader analysis on Israel's escalation. Well, they call it preventing escalations with escalations. Basically, they are targeting of Hezbollah and Lebanon. What can we make of this so far? Is this in a way Israel's attempt to further make sure that there's no peace in the Middle East and to make sure that their agenda is further perpetuated throughout the region?
Yeah, I mean, the kind of tensions, if you like, if that's a correct word, between Israel and Hezbollah this round began on the 8th of October. This was after the 7th of October operation by the resistance in Gaza. And it has been since the 8th of October until just over a week ago, very low level, tit for tat. Hezbollah ensured that the northern part of Israel was cleared of all people who were living there because of the danger of an attack from Lebanon. And that was in itself something of a victory from the Hezbollah side. And the rockets flying back and forth between Israel and Lebanon continued. Last week was, in a sense, an escalation from the Israeli side, with the 2 days, the pager attacks and the walkie-talkie attacks the next day. Completely indiscriminate, in many ways indiscriminate. Civilians were killed, children were killed, etc. But that clearly was, it now seems, Israel's beginning of a much larger scale attack on Lebanon. Now, Israel has been, over the past year, since October last year, attempting to escalate the situation regionally, not just in Gaza, but regionally, certainly with with Hezbollah in Lebanon, but also with Iran. So you might remember in April, for example, that they bombed the Iranian consulate in Damascus. So there's been this attempt to escalate it. From Monday this week, that went beyond an escalation. I mean, since Monday morning, we've seen continuous attacks on Lebanon taking place, particularly the south of Lebanon, but not just the south. Various parts of Lebanon, including the capital, Beirut, has been bombarded. Up to the north of Lebanon, bombarded virtually non-stop by Israeli planes, etc. In the first 24 hours, you had more than 500 people being killed. Large number of those, of course, are civilians. And so that's the point at which we are. It's now, I would say, gone beyond an escalation into a war. Israel is now at war with Hezbollah, with Lebanon. And I think that how the next few days play out will be very important. Certainly, we heard lots of condemnations and criticisms, etc., from the UN, with the heads of state at the opening of the UN General Assembly the past 2 days. But we know, of course, that UN statements from the UN and even UN resolutions from the Security Council don't mean much to Israel.
You mentioned that this is now a full-scale war. These are no longer escalations as it was previously reported, and I think the reality on the ground does reflect the fact that it is indeed a war. But is this a war that Israel can afford? We know what's happening internally. We know that most of their resources are now deployed in Gaza, and their military activities and human rights violations and genocide in that part of the world. Do they have the resources, the means to go on another full scale aggression and war on Lebanon?
So, two things about this. One is that we have in Israel now, apart from being the most right-wing and the most racist government Israel ever has had, it's also one of the most irrational in terms of how it acts. And so the question of can you afford it or not is a rational question, or requires a rational answer. And the Israeli government has shown that it's not a rational player at the moment. So I'm not sure that question features top of their minds. They do believe that, and there are sections of them that believe that they are on God's chosen people and on God's chosen path, and whatever they do, they will have God's support. So they don't have to ask questions like, "Can we afford it or not?" But the second part of that is that there also is a rational calculation here, and that is that they believe that as long as they restricted themselves to the genocide in Gaza, um, they would get, of course, all the weaponry, etc., from the West, particularly the United States, but also Germany, UK, and other states. But these other states, including the US, apart from giving that kind of support, funding, weapons, diplomatic support, will not get directly involved. However, the Israeli calculation is that if it's a regional war, and particularly if they can force Iran into a war, then the United States will get involved on the Israeli side. And their hope then is that once and for all they will deal with Iran and destroy it. If it's Israel together with the United States. So I believe that is the kind of bigger calculation here. So it starts with, well, I shouldn't say it starts with Lebanon, because they already have provoked Iran on numerous occasions in the past year, including the consulate bombing, the assassination of Ismail Haniya in Tehran, and other actions. But the escalation now with Hezbollah is, in a sense, part of a wider, or from the Israeli perspective, a wider war, a regional war that will pull Iran into it on the one side, and the Americans on the other.
I want to stick a bit on that theme. I think Iran's president Masoud Pezeshkian, I think said something really profound here regarding all of this. He said this is this attack on Lebanon is essentially an Israeli trap to draw Iran into the war itself. The regional countries themselves, whether it's Iran or is the UAE and the Middle East in general, what do you make of their response so far to this escalation and this full-blown war against Lebanon by Israel, as you previously mentioned?
So Iran and its allies, on the one hand, are being extremely careful, and this includes Hezbollah. I mean, Hezbollah's response since Monday to what is an imposed war has been much more restrained than it can be. So the Iran and its various allies in the region are being very careful, because their position seems to be that they don't want a regional war. That no one will benefit from such a war. I mean, Lebanon will be decimated. as will other communities. No one except Israel wants a regional war, and so they will, as far as possible, maintain their restraint. They also feel that the struggle against Israel is a long-term one, and won't be won over one war. So it's the kind of boiling a frog in a pot kind of analogy, if you like. And so they are very hesitant to get pulled further in, and that includes Hezbollah, which is now directly facing Israeli bombs. Hezbollah certainly will ratchet things up to a new level if there's a ground invasion from Israel, and they are prepared for that. But Iran, I mean, and Pezeshkian expressed that quite clearly, that they believe that Israel is setting a trap, and they don't want to fall into that trap. So that's Iran and its allies. And its allies include groups in Iraq. It includes Hezbollah and others. Other states, I mean, some states are just maintaining their silence, either neutrally or gleefully, or because they don't feel that they have anything to gain from not doing that. But maintaining the silence, of course, on the one hand, in the case of a genocide taking place, is acquiescing to the genocide. But secondly, some of them are materially supporting the Israelis. So, through the Yemeni attacks in the Red Sea, Israel wasn't able to get a large number of items, including particularly fruits and vegetables, for example. And so that is now being supplied by the United Arab Emirates to Israel, basically Emirati aid to the committers of genocide. Jordan, which is on the border with Israel, has opened its borders for these convoys of trucks carrying produce from the UAE to enter. So both of them are then complicit in this genocide that is taking place. And some other states, I mean, Turkey has at some point after the Yemeni attacks supplied fresh produce to Israel as well. And then you have states such as Saudi Arabia, which is being very careful and maintaining a kind of silence in this context, or Qatar, which is the Emir of Qatar at the UN expressed condemnation for Israel's actions both in Gaza and Lebanon, and is playing, or trying to play a different kind of role as a mediator. Others are, some of the others are complicit. I mean, Morocco is complicit with the genocide and with Israel, as is Egypt, for example.
I want to touch a bit on the United States of America. I think it was 2 days ago where they mentioned that they will be sending extra troops to the Middle East. There's already more than 40,000 that are stationed in that part of the world. In the broader context, what is this? What kind of message are they conveying by sending these extra troops? Are they trying to, make sure that they mitigate a full-blown war in the region, and this would be the appropriate response to it? What do you make of those deployments?
So yes, I mean the US has, and I believe that this is true, that they have expressed on numerous occasions that what they don't want is a regional war. They're quite happy to accept a genocide against Palestinians, but they believe that a regional war will be destructive to their interests in the region. And so deploying additional troops serves two purposes from their perspective. One is to discourage the war from becoming a regional one, and particularly discourage others from joining in on the Hezbollah side. And secondly, that if it does become a regional war, then they will be there to support Israel. I mean, this is clear that they will support Israel. We saw over the past year Biden listing a series of red lines for what would happen in Gaza. The Israelis mustn't go into Rafah, and the next day they do. The Israelis mustn't do this, and the next day they do, etc. And so, saying to the Israelis, "We don't want a regional war," doesn't mean that they won't pursue a regional war. It's clear that it's obvious to anyone that knows what's going on, that the United States is able to pull the plug on Israel's genocide and on Israel's now new war against Lebanon, but doesn't want to. And so, if you, as the United States, if you want to prevent a regional war, the way to do it is not by sending tens of thousands more American troops to the region. The way to do it is to just say to the Israelis, "We are no longer going to supply you with weapons or aid until you stop your rubbish." And the United States is not willing to do it. It is as simple as that. It's United States allowing Israel the green light, or giving Israel the green light, or at worst an amber light, that allows Israel to continue doing what it does, that allows Israel to ignore the United Nations, including the United Nations Security Council resolution, that allows Israel to even humiliate the American president. The American president makes an announcement on the 31st of May that he has a ceasefire proposal drafted by Israel, and puts it to the resistance in Gaza, which accepts it. But Israel has to date not accepted what supposedly is their own proposal. So Israel feels that they are empowered, there's a sense of impunity. They're empowered by it. That the United States is not going to take any action against them, not going to really be critical of them in any kind of way, and so they can do whatever they want because no one else is going to take them to task.
Unfortunately, we have run out of time. Naeem, thank you so much for giving us your time. And your really, really important analysis on this matter. And I'm pretty sure, as the situation continues to unfold, we'll be chatting with you a bit more.
Inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.
There you go. Naeem Gina, senior researcher at Mapungubwe Institute. Yeah. Israel feeling empowered, and continuing with impunity, and this is a state of affairs that we're currently living in. They feel like they're invincible. They feel like they can go untouched. They feel like in the Middle East particularly, they can attack whoever they want, whenever they want, and it's getting to a point where it feels like a lot of organizations and bodies that are there, like the UN Security Council and the United Nations itself, the ICJ and the ICC, all of these are just just fancy organizations with the guys in suits, who literally don't know how to do their job, and they can't distinguish right from wrong. Well, they can. It just depends who does. We're glad to be getting interactions from you, Premika David, on Facebook, saying surely sanctions need to be taken against Israel and its military and financial enablers now. It's already a regional war. The wheels of justice are too slow. There has to be unity within the Middle East countries urgently. Why can't there be a UN peace army sent across? The situation is heartbreaking. We feel helpless for the people of Palestine and Lebanon. May divine justice prevail. And I share your sentiments deeply, but how can the same people that are perpetuating genocides and are funding Israel to essentially commit these human rights things all across the Middle East be the same people that are making sure that there's peace, and the people that are victims of this aggression by Israel are held to task because they're funding it. And again, they're the same people who we expect that they make the calls to end the ongoing genocide and the aggression and the impunity that the fake state of Israel continues to operate in the Middle East. So, interesting times ahead, but we'll be sure to give you the latest here on Salam Media. We're going to take a quick break. We'll see you a bit after this.